Welcome back to another episode of KKC Consulting. Today promises to be an enlightening episode as I'm joined by Xinyuan, an associate consultant at Bain and Company. And thankfully, today's our very first episode of just doing a complete audio podcast. So hopefully you guys can enjoy and learn as much as you can. Now, Xinyuan, it's great to have you here. Do you mind introducing yourself to our listeners?
Hi, Xinyuan. I'm right now working as an associate consultant at Bain and Company in Toronto. Before that, I graduated from University of Waterloo about a year and a half ago. I had a Master of Management Sciences, and before that, I actually did my undergrad degree in China in mechanical engineering. So I'm very happy to be here today sharing my experiences with you guys.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Xinyuan.
No worries.
So, time for the very first question. Let's jump right in. Do you
Yeah.
mind speaking about your journey?
Okay. So, uh, I think my experience is unique in a way. It's because when I actually got the Bain offer, I just landed in Canada for like about a year. I was an international student, and I actually did my 4 years undergrad in China, so it was a little bit different for me than a lot of other candidates or my coworkers that I have joined the company with. It was fairly interesting when I get into consulting with not so much prior attention, like intention to get into it. But I was really interested in the field, and I did some research, prepared for the interview, and I finally get in here and now work about a year and a half. Great experiences coming from an engineering background now pivot into the business world. Definitely, there's a lot of different things to be noticed.
Absolutely fantastic. I'm so glad you kind of covered everything. Your journey
Uh,
in China and over here as well, Canada. And that kind of leads me, do you mind
okay.
explaining how your engineering background has helped you in consulting?
I think this is a question that I got asked a lot by a lot of people. Um, uh, and I have to be so brutally honest with you. I think consulting is one field. Um, like there are not so many roles in this world that don't actually care about your background, but like consulting is one of them. I got asked so often, people ask like, oh, how's your backgrounds helping you, or is it stopping you? And to be honest, what I can say is, um, as a junior consultant, your background is not that much being focused on. What they really focus on is your problem solving skills, it's like your communication skills, and it's your whether you're ambitious enough to get into the industry. um so that's from like a recruiter's perspective. Background doesn't really matter that much. uh, for me personally, my background does actually help me a lot in consulting because whenever there are some like numbers, analytical skills, technical things, and I am able to respond a lot faster than my peers. And also, uh, frankly speaking, like studying engineering for 4 years is like a painful experience. So it makes consulting even a little bit easier. So that's what I can say.
That's true. Because I was actually thinking about going into engineering before
Uh,
I decided to go into Schulich. And the main reason I didn't pick it was just because it's so analytical. It's so
It's
much
so
math,
much.
physics, chemistry, yeah. So I just decided to go into
Yeah.
Schulich.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, basically. And you don't get as much of a social life than, yeah, than like the business school students.
Right. No, 100% the stereotypes are somewhat
That
true.
that they're real.
Another thing I wanted to touch base on, how was your transition going from China to adapting to Canada?
Oh yeah. So, oh, that's a big question. Where should I start? I was in China studying, and also I have like several internships back in China. And I discovered that stay in China and work endlessly might not be a really good idea for me because like culturally speaking, we value so much what of work. Well, I think in Canada people do hustle as well, but they still value their life, their family and friends. But in China, it's more about, work hard and make money, and it's more like the whole society kind of really grind and kind of really hustle. To be honest, I am not a big fan of it. So that's the one reason why I want to move to Canada. And secondly, it's because um, I am a I'm the person who likes a little bit, spontaneous things and exploration and discover kind of a new life. So for me, it's really exciting and new experiences. And I remember when I was about to leave, I was actually so excited. And it's kind of new life. You're gonna meet so many different people with different background and try to live in a country with completely different culture and try to have a life there. It just like essentially really excites me a lot. So with that kind of mindset I have, I come to Canada. I really don't find it's like a struggle for me to do. I I think I see everything as interesting and challenging. So that is how it helps me to adapt to a new culture. And definitely, even if right now my English is not like as fluent as a native speaker, and most importantly, it's more like I'm still very Chinese, like my lifestyle and my philosophy and how I interact with people is still very Chinese in a way. And I think during my job, it's a little bit different than my coworkers, and it kind of bothered me at the beginning. But later on, I met a lot of people who also have a Chinese background or they have like Indian background, um, some international background, but they are still doing very great at the job, workplace, and also in their life. So I guess why not?
That's fantastic. Do you mind telling me a little bit more about, the new experience, the excitements, the butterflies? How did it really feel?
Okay, let me think about it. Okay. And I think one thing is I really like about Canada. It's I get a lot more exposure to the nature. I got to go to hiking, see the lakes, and enjoy a little bit of nature here and there. Especially, I started in Waterloo, and there's not much people there, and it's not like Toronto. It's not very hectic.
Right.
So it's very different. I lived in Shanghai before, where there are like 24 million people in the
Wow.
city. Yeah, 24 million. So it's never end and it's crowded even at 3 a.m. It's um always something going on there. Well, in Waterloo, I'm like, okay, where I am, like I can understand how people write out those country music because that's what they see all day. Uh, it's very different.
I'm really glad that you were able to find a comfortable spot. You mentioned earlier that it was hard transitioning. You mentioned it bothered you a little bit, but
Yeah.
I'm very glad you were able to find that space where you were able to find other people like you, relate to them, talk to them about your hobbies, your talents, anything
Hmm.
of that nature.
Yeah, yeah.
How helpful do you think it is to have, just friends along the way?
Oh, I think it's super important. I
Right,
always believe in one thing is friends are your chosen families.
right.
And, we have a family that we are born with.
Hmm.
They might not be perfect, but when you grow up and you definitely have the ability to choose your own family that who you stay close with and stay friends with. And especially when you're an international student, you don't have family here. I mean, they're not easily available to you anymore.
Right.
Your old friend, you probably like can only task online. So it's very important to make new friends, and I am very lucky in the way that I have several good friends in Canada and they support me along the way. I remember when I got the offer, and when I got the Bain offer, like my best friend, she is the first person to know the news, and she immediately got me like a little cake for
Oh, that's
celebration.
so nice. That's
Yeah,
so
it
nice.
is very cute, and they are just very important to me.
Right. Hopefully, I don't think my friends will do it, but hopefully, when I get wherever I want to go,
I mean, I
they'll at
mean,
least give me a
they
gift.
support you in a different way.
I feel like all they'll do is just give me a thumbs up. That's it. Like, good job. And then that's it.
Okay, but you gotta have like, friends
Supportive friends,
who you
yeah.
hung out with, like
Hmm.
have fun with, but also
Right,
like one or two people that you're really close to.
right.
Um, yeah,
And I'm glad that coming into Schulich, I was able to find different groups of people. Some who
yeah,
are very career driven, so I can take the good in that. Some who are very family oriented, friends oriented, so I
yeah,
can
yeah,
take the good in that. And I feel touching base on what you said earlier on, friends are kind of your chosen family. And I like that concept a lot. I heard it when I was, I think, 12 or 13, stuck with me ever since as well.
yeah, yeah,
Your friends can dictate where you go in the future. One way I like to understand how a person thinks is honestly by their friends. Like my friends are my friends are very very interesting to say the least, but they bring out the best in me as well.
yeah. I totally agree. I think they give me so much force, so much, warmth, and they give me so much. I don't know how to say, like energy.
I understand what you mean. Yeah. It gives you
Yeah,
more motivation to continue because you're like, you
oh
know
yeah,
what? I wake up today, I have my friends. They're amazing. I'm so glad.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
I feel
yeah,
it's a little bit
totally.
of gratitude as well that plays into the mix. The more you're grateful for something, the more happiness you can take away from it. Do you agree?
Yes, yes, totally.
100%. Now, massive jump back into the professional realm. Are
Oh
you
yeah,
ready?
sure.
So, as we all know, consulting can present unique challenges. Do you
Hmm.
mind talking about a few of these challenges?
Oh yeah. I think challenge is the main thing in consulting, and you kind of have to deal with it every day. And remember my first case, it was actually a financial service case where our client is um like I cannot say it though, but like yeah, one of the very big huge bank. So
Right.
So, as you can see, I came from an engineering background. I really have no idea about a balance sheet or how to calculate those insurance things and,
Yeah.
the processes in a bank. So it was quite difficult for me in the beginning just to catch up with the whole team because except for me, everyone else is kind of experienced and they have been doing financial services cases before. I have no idea. So there are a few things I can help. Uh, I can share like how do I came over these challenges. And first of all is never skip the week zero. So at Bain we have like, for example, if it's a 7 week case, we will charge the clients 7 weeks, but we do actually have a week zero before
I see.
those cases kick in, and that's 1 week for us to really ramp up and get started. And sometimes,
Oh, I
and when
see.
people are staffed into the case, and actually they actually came from like week one, and this was kind of my case. uh, no, it was not my case in my first case. So I did
I
have like
see.
a week zero, the complete week to prepare for it. And I think that's like so important for me,
Mm.
especially when you're in the industry, you have no ideas. Um, Secondly, you gotta choose to learn smart. So
Oh, interesting.
yeah, So what do I mean is when you actually look at all the information you can get, whether it's like YouTube videos, articles online, or
Or
internal databases.
podcast.
Yeah, podcasts too. There are so many things that can learn. For example, if the case is about insurance, you can learn years about many aspects of insurance, and you were not able to do it in a week. So it's very important from day one. You're gonna align with your supervisor. You know, what are the key criteria that I should know, and what are the cases going to work on, so I can decide what kind of knowledge that I'm gonna take in. So this step is very important. Don't just get started, jump into the huge information ocean of, you know, um, like industry insurance, whatever that is. Be smart and learn the things that it is needed. And thirdly, I think always keep that in mind is that you're not gonna learn everything and you're not gonna be ready. You Most of the time, even during the cases, you figured there are so many things you have to work on, and sometimes people start to panic. And then my suggestion is like, don't panic because it will actually happen every time. And
Right,
don't think you have to be 100% ready. And don't ignore that there are so many people that can help you in the team.
right. Great insights. All three of them were amazing. One thing I did want to
No
touch
worries.
on was how you mentioned it's very important to have a plan, not to just rush into things. I feel
Yeah.
personally, I rush into things a lot. So it's a great reminder for me. But
Yeah, I think it depends. Like,
right,
if you already know, for example, it's a course, it's like an exam, you just rush into it because it cannot be wrong. But you know, for cases and for clients, it's kind of gets tricky
right,
because you're gonna understand exactly what they want, and often the cases they don't, they're not super sure of what they want. Sometimes some clients, but yeah, I mean, like it really depends. So be very specific at the beginning is important.
right. Being able to be specific, have your goals outlined, being able to have a proper step-by-step plan, I feel is important. Is that true, or am I kind of on the wrong
Yeah,
track?
it's true. And also keep in mind the plan is changing all the time, so don't
Oh,
panic about it.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that ties into your third advice as well. You're not going to be ready for everything. You need to be able
No.
to be adaptable, right?
Yes.
Right, 100%. We've talked about challenges. Let's talk about some of the good stuff. What are some of the most rewarding experiences being a consultant, especially at a prestigious company like Bain?
Okay. Hmm. There are so many things that are very rewarding. So the very first thing I'm gonna mention is this is the job that requires you to challenge yourself a lot and doing a lot of things at the same time. So after a year, you kind of feel like a different person. Um, so take me for example. Before I joined Bain, I was a little bit stereotypical engineering student, that type of person. I was a little bit, nervous, a little bit shy talking to strangers, and um, I wasn't really proactive on the things that I want, and and also I wasn't really, focusing so much on interaction with people, networking, or kind of like make good relationships with colleagues. Well, I think these are very important skills as an adult, but I didn't really develop that before I joined Bain. But like when I got into Bain, got into the environment, I was challenged to do so many things, and in some cases I need to do many interviews to the clients, and to other many companies, and to expert call. We're gonna call them, those people are like CTO, CEO of a tech company, and
Yeah,
they
wow.
they are so experienced in their field, and you kind of feel like a fool in front of them, but you're not gonna show it anywhere. You're gonna be so composed, calm,
Right.
and you're gonna ask them questions like you already know everything. So this
That's
is like
interesting.
a yeah, this is like a fantastic experience.
Hmm.
Even though just watching my supervisor doing that actually helped me a lot. I was like, oh, actually, you can do that. And Bain is a very extroverted company where I can say that. So there's so many, um, hangouts, get around,
Right.
dinners, go to the bars together, and in some way, it practices your social skills as well. So that is a rewarding in me. It changes me to someone who has better social skills and
Right.
who is more proactive in connecting with people that actually appreciating and admiring. So this is like the number one good thing I think this job brought me. And other than that, there are many perks that I can mention. For
Right.
example, we had a global training for each new consultant. So some of my colleagues went to Boston, and
Wow.
I went to Dublin, Ireland. Um, it was like a 7 hours flight, and we were in the very fancy resort.
Wow.
Um, we're doing like a team exercise, case practices, and kind of like do tasks together, which is awesome. And in summer, we went to Blue Mountains for the
Mhm.
summer summit offsite. We stayed there for a night, partied, had fun, and enjoyed so many things. It was actually very fun, and I like those activities a lot. And if you're at Bay, there's definitely so much of those chances. Yeah.
You mentioned many things. I want to go by them one by one. But the
Totally.
first one, you mentioned it's very fast paced, which I
Yeah.
appreciate. I like the fact that you mentioned how you grew from it, right? It's so fast paced that you couldn't recognize yourself just because you learned so much over the time period. And I feel
Hmm.
it's a challenge, but it's also a very rewarding challenge because at the end of it, you can smile and say, you know what? I'm proud of myself. I was able to do this, this, this. I bettered my speaking skills, communication, listening skills, etc. The second thing I wanted to talk about is how you were able to correlate that to your training system, right? Being able to party with your friends, talk to them, better your social skills. And it's very funny how you mentioned that you have to have like a very stone cold face when speaking to clients. Very funny.
Not really. I say like in a very, demure manner.
Fair enough. Kind of scares me a little bit when I think about it. How you have to
Yeah,
have,
it scares me a lot when I
yeah.
yeah.
But I mean, that's perfect transition to my next question. You've been a part of so many projects. How important is it to ask the right questions? So essentially, how are you able to ask questions that leave the person like, oh, you know what? This person knows her shit. She's amazing. Wow.
Hmm.
How are you able to do that?
Yeah, so it is very, very important, and I actually not did very well on
I
this
see.
one before. So what I can say from a very junior role is whatever we ask the client, we are very strategic about that. And whatever we present to the client is the result of hundreds of rounds of discussion. So that's it's not your own responsibility, what I can say. Especially I am a very junior role, we gonna sit there, discuss what question we gonna ask the client all together, and often it's a partner who has like a final say about it. So for me, I don't really have so much experience on directly asking the question. I mean, I do ask the question, but the question is already, written out by all of us.
Interesting. I see. So it's
Yeah,
kind
so
of
but
collaboration?
I do want to talk about ask the right question in the team because
Right.
as a junior, I think you gotta ask your supervisor and your teammates a lot, and those people usually they are more senior of you.
Right,
So asking them the right question is very tricky. I had this experience with one of the supervisor who is actually so much senior than me. Um, so we usually have like a senior associate consultant for a associate consultant who is like about 2 years more in tenure. But that supervisor I had is actually like a manager and who was like 5, 6 years more in
wow,
tenure,
wow.
like above me, which is not a very usual staffing model. So he is really busy with his job, and he he is kind of like the very code and analytical type of person. So I do feel like he really get kind of annoyed when I ask like, too many dumb questions, whatever.
Right,
So I think firstly, if you kind of in the same situation where your direct supervisor is so much senior from you, then you gonna be a little bit careful of asking the question. Typically, I would suggest you ask someone of the same tenure before you really bring the question to the one that is a lot above you.
right,
And another important thing I want to mention is do include your own thinking and in the question. uh, for example, can ask, can we do A or B? Or you can ask, I there are two choices A and B, and I think we can go for A. Those are my reasons below. And this, like the second type of question, is definitely gonna be better than the first type.
so being able to provide your insights in a sense where the other person's like, okay, so the person provided me the question, and on top of that, they were able to provide me with different insights, so I don't have to do as much thinking. Am I correct
Yeah,
with that?
yeah, I think very right, very right. And I think really from thinking about from the other person's perspective, what they want from you is actually they can get the things done in
Right.
like the minimum effort in like coaching you through the process.
No, 100% that makes sense because essentially the idea that you want to bring to the manager, the partner, whoever you're working with is an idea that's filtered down so much
Mm-hmm.
where it's ready to just be passed on to the next level, right?
Yeah, like you have your thinkings in it. It doesn't have to be correct, but I think we always say like answers first, and
Right.
we do require everyone to think about the answers first, and those don't have to be the final answer, but you have to have the thinking process behind it.
Right. That sounds very stressful. How are you able to kind of
It
keep up
is
with that
stressful.
constant pressure?
It is stressful. I would say sometimes you have like a very good supervisor and your days will be easier. Sometimes you just like kind of stuff with the people who is a little bit hard to work with, and it happens. So I actually don't have a really good solution for that. But what's good is that after this project, 2, 3 months, you're gonna be stepping into a different group, so different supervisor. If one sucks, you don't have to stay with them forever.
Right. No,
Yeah.
that's completely fair advice. That's great because the thing that I really like about this podcast is, especially this episode, is you're giving really real insights. You're allowing people to
Yeah.
fully understand the culture rather than maybe just the sprinkles of it. You want them to understand every single layer, which I really, really do
Yeah, I
appreciate.
think so. And this job is actually a little bit it's a stressful job, and they constantly evaluate you a lot, and there
Right,
most of the people that I had in the job are really, were helping, but it's not everyone. And sometimes people are nice to you, but nice with those little things that doesn't really matter. And
Right,
when it's time for them to, spend the time and effort in coaching, and sometimes people just don't really care that much because for a supervisor, coaching is not what decided your performance, right?
right. Now, time for a really, really big question. Are you ready?
Oh yeah, sure.
What advice would you give to people who want to become consultants?
Okay. Two main parts. If you want to get into business consulting, and um, what actually helps you to excel at business consulting. So for the first part, if you really want in get into for business consulting, what I have suggest you is you should do it and you should definitely try. And it is not that hard. So I got a lot of people who's asking me, "Oh, I don't know if I should try. I don't have a business background. I'm kind of worried they don't really like me." Or people who actually graduate from business school, kind of like, "Oh, I don't have any technical background." I heard that they kind of like people with technical background, and people just have all sort of things to worry about, whether to get into industry or not, and they are often worry that they're not good enough, and please don't worry that much. And if you want to do it, you should first of all have person to have coffee chat with to know if you really enjoy it or not, and secondly try to get an internship to try it on and to know whether you like it or not, and thirdly just do it, right?
Right.
There's nothing you can lose, and don't gaslight yourself into those are too difficult. Those are for the top student, and you should have to be several target school, and you should have to have a background, or you should have to have a business background. Those are not real if you want to get into consulting. And that brings us to the second part, and what actual advice I have in people who wants to be a consultant and interested in being a consultant is to actually think about why do you like it, and what are your plans, like 5 years plans. So those sounds very cliche, but a lot of people who want to get into business consulting simply because it is
Money.
regarded as like one of the fancy job,
Right.
and it is regarded as, oh, only can smart people can get into it, that type of fantasies that people have about it. um those fantasies are not gonna make you happy or fulfilled. I mean, if you want to make more money, and there's definitely uh, jobs can make you more money, software engineer, investment banking. If you just want to be like doing something fancy, and there are many other options too. So really think about why do you want it, and remember there are a lot of downside of it too. For example, the stress you're gonna feel, and maybe it's a different culture that you're gonna get used to. Think about it. And thirdly, it's about what is your actual plan. And some people say, I don't really have a plan, that's why I get into consulting. So and I think that is very true. uh, and I don't think you should be ashamed of that. And remember, a lot of people who join consulting for only 2 3 years and they get out of it, the people who make the partner are usually the people who don't think they will stay in consulting for a long while, but they gradually kind of fall in love in the process. So be open to your choices and kind of think about, several years in consulting is part of your journey, and what do you actually want. Think about those questions before you get into consulting, and constantly think about those questions even if you already have a consulting role, you're already a consultant. You think about what you actually want in life. That's my advices.
I feel Nike says it best. Just do it, right? You should try it out. You're young. It's at a point of your life. You're in your 20s. You have time to, really decide what you like. And on top of that, I really agree with what you said. You have to plan, you have to try and see where am I going to be in 5 years? What steps should I take to achieve that? What are the pros and cons to it? And at the same time, you want to ensure that it's something passionate, right? I feel you're very
Yeah,
strong
definitely.
on having something that's passionate, and I'm the exact same. I really want to be able to help others in a way that I love to do it. I love, helping businesses, whatever else it might be, entrepreneurship. And it's great advice. Absolutely solid advice. That kind of leads me to my next question. What are your long-term aspirations?
Oh yeah, sure. So, my long-term aspiration, I want to be an entrepreneur, and I want to have my own business, be my own boss, and be able to have a sort of freedom to work from everywhere from the world because, I got many friends here in North America, Canada, States, and even Mexico. And I got like a whole family back in China. So
Right.
I really want to have that sort of freedom for me. And if you work a job, it's really hard for me to achieve that. But being an entrepreneur can definitely help me. And what I am really interested in right now is artificial intelligence, of course, and then and then education technology as well, because as you said, as I want to help people, and for now my ability to help people is actually using my experience and knowledge I had. For example, applying for different universities, how to study abroad, and how to get like a good offer. Those are the valuable insights I can give people for. um, and secondly, about the artificial and tech startup thing, this is something I'm constantly thinking about ideas and constantly looking for
Right.
a co-founder with me who knows more technical skills. So I'm looking for my CTO right now.
Fantastic that, you want to go into entrepreneurship. I remember in my second episode with Iman, he also mentioned he wants to go consulting and then entrepreneurship afterwards. It's so nice seeing
Yeah,
all
yeah.
you guys have these aspirations.
I do, and I think to be an entrepreneur in the first few years, you probably won't have an income, and because unless your application and your products get like so popular so quick,
Right,
mostly it's not gonna happen. So, in the first 1 or 2, 3 years, you're probably not gonna have
right.
that much income. So that's what I am doing right now. Is actually like actively saving so much money. I am accounting my bank account every day to see, oh, it's actually can support me for 2 years without working, and at that time, it's my time to kind of go all in to pursue my dream.
Right. I mean, I'm the same way, except I can just see if it can last me 2 weeks, my bank account.
2 weeks, that's
But we'll
never
get
be
there. We'll
bad.
get there. It is pretty bad. My spending habits are a bit concerning, but hopefully I'll fix them up before there's major consequences to it. But yeah, thank you so much, Xinyuan. I'm so glad you were able to share everything consulting, entrepreneurship, fitting in, the lifestyle at Bain. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and your stories. And your journey's genuinely so amazing. I'm so glad I was able to meet you and connect with you as well.
Thank you.
And I'm sure our audience also learned a lot from this conversation. So, turning it back to the audience, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And remember, the journey is yours to script. Try to do whatever you want. Jinyuan is perfect example of this. So, thank you. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye bye.